We are not helpless. As much as people in power like to make it seem like we need them, you know, that we are at their beck and call and that they can just walk all over us. The reality is we have far more power than we are aware of, right? You think about, you know, the story of the elephant who's on like this leash, right? And it's just a very thin leash that is put into the ground, right? But the elephant doesn't know its own strength. It doesn't know that at any time it can literally just walk away and rip this leash out of the ground. What up? It's Dramos, and this is the recap, of course, as I do each and every week, breaking down some of the biggest headlines from this last week. And man, I am flying solo on today's show. I normally would have a guest assisting me, but I want to get some things off of my chest that have been happening recently and are just a scary reminder of the current state of the world that we live in right now. So man, without further ado, let's just get into some of the BS. Now, I'd like to just kind of talk about the current state of the world right now, right? And I guess more specifically our country, because everything is just, man, starting to feel like one giant glitch in the matrix, right? And let's start with our elected officials, right? People who are supposed to be the brightest and most morally sound humans our country has to offer, right? And these are individuals that are chosen by the people and take an oath to lead by example, right? And uphold the Constitution and democracy as we know it. Now, as beautiful as that sounds, sadly here in 2022, we couldn't be further away from that, right? Let's talk about Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz out of Florida, who during an event recently said that, quote, women with the least likelihood of getting pregnant are the ones most worried about having abortions. Nobody wants to impregnate you if you look like a thumb, end quote. Yes, words from an elected official. And this is actually coming from a man who allegedly, right? We'll say allegedly, paid a woman for sex, and actually an underage woman at that, right? And allegedly, of course. Like, not for nothing, Matt, but if the majority of your recent transactions on Venmo are for sex, you're not exactly killing it in the dating department either, right? And then he goes on, this congressman, right, goes on to retweet an interview that he did with a ABC affiliate in which he was asked if he was calling women who attend abortion rallies, quote, ugly and overweight. And he replied, quote, yes, doubling down on this disgusting misogyny that exists, sadly, amongst our elected officials. Like, Matt Gaetz is literally the guy who peaked in high school, right? And he still wears his Letterman jacket around, and his mind never matured past the age of 17. And what's even more sad about this is that in the modern day Republican Party, those attributes actually seem to be a positive, right? Those are things that get you in office, acting like a zombied out meathead, right? And sadly, what gets even more crazy about this story is that he wasn't done there, right? He followed up those statements by retweeting a Newsmax piece that was done on him and his comments, including a picture of a 19-year-old liberal activist named Olivia Juliana, and this was all done as a means to cyberbully her for her appearance, right? He was body shaming this woman, this young woman, for her appearance. Now, this leads to the one thing about the current state of the world that I truly love, that we, the people, have a voice, right? Because what Olivia did, like any strong Latina, was turn that extra attention she was getting into something positive, right? She chose to fight back and did that by starting an abortion fund and encouraging people to donate, right? And guess what the result of this was? She raised over $1 million in less than 72 hours. I mean, proving to be just another example of why our friend Maddie really needs to stop messing with teenage girls, right? Now, moving on to something that has been really devastating to our society, right? And it's the misinformation that is happening online, and that sadly large numbers of people are more than willing to believe, right? Take internet troll Alex Jones, for example, right? And this is a man who for years has been spreading the lie that the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre that happened in 2012, taking the lives of 26 people, claiming that that event was a hoax, right? Disgusting, I know. Yet sadly, he has tons of people believing this lie, right? And he's making a career off of it, right? With zero credible evidence, Alex Jones took to his audience to spread these lies solely as a means to increase his notoriety, right? And as the families of these victims, right, are seeing this, and as if they haven't suffered enough, and as if these words are not harmful enough, guess what else happens? Alex Jones' little troll followers begin to send death threats to these families, right? Claiming that the death of their little child was a hoax and that they need to stop lying. How disgusting is that, right? But now, Alex Jones, he seems to be singing a different tune as the wealth that he's built, spreading lies like this one, is in fact at risk because of a defamation lawsuit from one of the victims' families. And now that he had to take the stand under oath and his pockets are seeming like they might be getting lighter, right? Alex Jones has said something much different than he did to his followers online. And when asked if Sandy Hook was real, he admitted, quote, "It was, especially since I've met the parents. It's 100% real," end quote. And that is what Alex Jones said on the stand while testifying at his trial. And this is the current state of the world, right? People who are ruining lives just to get internet fame from easy targets. And it's a really scary place to exist, to see people like Alex Jones propped up there, making tons and tons of money, getting millions and millions of followers, spreading hate, spreading nonsense, spreading lies. It truly, once again, speaks to the scary place that we are in this world currently. Now, with that said, let's cleanse our palates a little bit with something uplifting happening in our community, right? Let's talk about El Conejo Malo, Bad Bunny, right? The one and only. And Bad Bunny has been setting quite a bit of stir leading up to this. He announced 3 nights of concerts in Puerto Rico. And this had people, man, lining up for days on end all around the block in Puerto Rico, sleeping on the streets just to get these tickets. And he did not disappoint, first and foremost, with the show that he put on. But let's talk about the numbers here before we get into, man, what this actually means for Puerto Rico and what it means for I feel like Latinos across the globe, right? Now, first of all, Bad Bunny, he actually set a new attendance record at the Jose Miguel Agrelot Coliseum of Puerto Rico, right? And this was with 18,749 people in the first show of his concert, right? And the management of the Coliseum actually confirmed that Bad Bunny made history on the island while simultaneously broadcasting live in 13 different places throughout the island and through Telemundo, and actually surpassed the figure that Metallica, one of the world's biggest artists for decades, he has surpassed the record that they had for attendance of just over 17,000 people, right? Bad Bunny doing big things, and I feel like I kind of skated over a bit of what he actually did with this broadcast of his concert, right? He held viewing parties for people who couldn't get tickets at 13 different locations around the island, including his hometown of Vega Baja. And it was just incredible to see people packing these places out of all ages just to be able to support what this man is doing and what he's doing for the island. And speaking of what Bad Bunny has in fact been doing for the island, outside of the music, he's been using his platform and this attention that he currently has to speak out on behalf of his people. Now, I know this is a bit of a loaded topic for a lot of people. A lot of people say, I'm just here for the music. I want my artist to be an artist. I'm not here to get informed about politics from the people that I look to for art and for entertainment. But I always make the argument that why waste a platform, right? So many people are fighting to be heard, to be seen. So many people don't have a voice in this world. And you are going to then just ignore the fact that you can touch millions upon millions of people with just a few words or just a simple social media post. To me, that would be a waste of all that this man has built. And it seems like Bad Bunny agrees with us on this one here, right? Because what Bad Bunny did during his concert, outside of performing all the songs that everybody wanted to hear and putting on a great show and inviting different legendary artists to share the stage with him, he also took that time to critique the electrical company of Puerto Rico, Luma, for their terrible service and their price gouging. And for anybody not familiar, Puerto Rico has been facing consistent blackouts all over the island due to this electrical company, Luma, all while their bills continue to go up and they're charged more and more money for a lackluster service that they can't even depend on. And all of this under the watch of their current governor, Pierluisi, right? And Bad Bunny then took to the stage while critiquing Luma and also had some words for the current administration of the island. Now, I can't say them here on television, but they were powerful and they were dirty and the crowd absolutely loved it. They cheered, they roared. And of course, this caused quite a stir all over the internet, right? And of course, these politicians were responding, clutching their pearls. They can't believe somebody spoke to them like that, right? But to me, again, this is one of the things that I love about the current state of the world that we live in. As terrible as things also are, and as much nonsense is going on, it also makes things a bit easier. And what I mean by easier, it means our messaging, our angst, our problem with authority is now able to reach the people in charge, right? Bad Bunny is getting responses from the governor and all the politicians in Puerto Rico, right? They can't hide anymore. They are there getting critiqued by the people and they have no choice but to pay attention because of how loud the voices are when it comes to these platforms, especially somebody like a Bad Bunny who has all of this extra attention on him. And to me, that is one positive thing about the current state of the world, is that we have the ability as the people to fight back when we see something wrong, when we are being taken advantage of, and we need to use that opportunity every single chance that we get in this world and in this life. And also, side note here, Bad Bunny has surpassed Beyonce with the most streams of any artist in the entire world, like I think all time, if I'm not mistaken. Think about that. Passing Beyonce, and all of his music is in Spanish. It is a beautiful time to be alive, a beautiful time to be a Latino. It is just incredible to see. Now, I know people are just going to say, well, it's just music. What's the big deal about that? But like I've said many times on this show, it begins to open the doors for our culture to be accepted as normal, right? To be accepted for various opportunities. So many times the powers that be would tell us that our music, our entertainers, our voices, our interests are solely just for us. And somebody like Bad Bunny doing those kinds of numbers proves that they are wrong, because that shows that you have people who don't even speak Spanish loving and supporting this man's music. And it shows you the global reach that our culture can have. And that opens the doors for all of us to go in there and do the things that we have dreamed about. So big salute to Bad Bunny and all that he's doing right now. Now, with that said, let's of course end on some more positivity. And we'll do that in the form of a positive quote. Now, here's the deal. I was talking about all of the terrible things that are happening in the world. And man, people like Alex Jones just being in a world where a guy like that has a platform, right? And being in a world where a guy like Matt Gaetz, who is an alleged pedophile, is an active congressman in office, right? Has the power and is put in office and is, man, just showcasing the worst possible, attributes that a human being could have, yet he's an elected official. And that's a scary, scary thing. But on the flip side of that, talking about the current state of the world, you see stories like the one of Olivia, you know, turning that attention that Matt Gaetz gave her into something positive, you know, raising money for a cause, and the people essentially speaking through her and speaking through that cause, you know, and showcasing the power that we all have when we organize and when we decide to fight back in the way that we are able to, right? I think to me that gives us a lot of hope, and somebody like a Bad Bunny, you know, amassing this incredible platform and this incredible attention, and then utilizing it for good to fight on behalf of his people, to speak out on behalf of his people, to me, again, just goes to show you all of the power that we can have if we just organize and get behind one another. Now, today's positive quote is in relation to that, and it comes to us from Louise Hay, and it says, quote, "You have the power to heal yourself, and you need to know that. We think too often that we are helpless, but we are not. We always have the power of our minds. Claim and consciously use your power." And I love that right there, because to me, the general gist of that quote and the words that Luis is saying there is that we all have the ability to fight back, to push back, you know, no matter what they take away from us, no matter how they try to silence us, we have our minds, right? And we have the greatest weapon in our minds, right? Our ability to think and to come up with plans and ideas and to communicate with one another because of this, right? We are not helpless. As much as people in power like to make it seem like we need them, you know, that we are at their beck and call and that they can just walk all over us. The reality is we have far more power than we are aware of, right? You think about, you know, the story of the elephant who's on like this leash, right? And it's just a very thin leash that is put into the ground, right? But the elephant doesn't know its own strength. It doesn't know that at any time it can literally just walk away and rip this leash out of the ground. But it's been trained to think that this leash is holding it back from roaming freely, right? And I think that when you think about modern day society and modern day politics, that is sort of what we've been trained of, right? That we need, you know, the government to come save us. We the people are weak, right? And that we the people don't know what the hell we're talking about. And that's why these elected officials, you know, do what they do, and they're so smart, and we should be so grateful for them, right? And I think that the modern day, man, what generation, you know, we've realized that that's all nonsense. You know, these politicians are no smarter than us. They just figured it out, right? They figured out a way to dupe the people into putting them in office. And we've seen it. We've seen it play out time and time again, especially recently with the advent of the internet and the accessibility of information. It's proving that these people are no better than us. In fact, many of us are quite smarter, you know, have more, ideas than they could ever have, right? Then that's why you see so many of these people just fighting for power right now. They're just fighting to maintain that power. They're trying to scare the masses into keeping them in power, right? And again, when you see the people organizing and fundraising and using their platforms and calling, you know, the powers that be out, look at the reaction that the government of Puerto Rico had after Bad Bunny called them out, right? These politicians are, again, clutching their pearls, like they're so offended by this and that he should be, you know, shameful for even thinking about talking to them in this manner, right? And that's because they fear the power of the people. They recognize the type of influence that somebody like him is having, and the youth and the people of the island are not, you know, sitting back and just letting themselves be taken advantage of anymore. And that just shows you, you know, something we can implement everywhere. We have to fight back. We have to use our voices. We have to organize and use our minds to push against, you know, all of these negative things that are happening in this world, you know, and we have the ability to do so. We don't need anyone to save us. We have the ability to save ourselves as long as we, you know, fight together. Again, utilize our mind, our intelligence, and organize. We have all the power that we could ever need. Now, with that said, man, thank y'all so much for tuning into today's episode. I know I was ranting a little bit. You know, I know I was maybe selfishly going on about some topics that have been really upsetting me as of late, but I appreciate you for sticking by, and I hope that, you know, it maybe shed some light on some things that are going on in this world that I think we all need to be very much aware of, or else, man, I don't know what our future could hold. But man, if we, this new generation, continue to use our minds and organize and get behind one another, I more than believe we have the ability to right this ship. So fingers crossed that's what ends up happening. And with that said, I'll catch y'all next time with a brand new episode. Until then, man, stay safe, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.